On a map, Canada and the United States look almost like a single country. They share the longest land border in the world, stretching for nearly 9,000 kilometers. People speak the same language, watch the same movies, and listen to the same music, and cities on both sides of the border can sometimes look incredibly similar. But if you look a little closer, it becomes clear that these countries are far more different than they first appear. Different laws, different habits, different ways of life, and even different attitudes toward the everyday things people deal with. Sometimes just crossing the border is enough to make you feel like you've stepped into a completely different system. What's considered perfectly normal in one country might seem strange or even unexpected in the other. Today, we're going to break down 12 things that are drastically different between Canada and the United States. Some of them are pretty obvious, but others are things you probably never even knew about. Before watching, subscribe to the channel and don't forget to rate the video. One of the most well-known differences between Canada and the United States is the healthcare system. Canada has a publicly funded healthcare system, making basic medical care accessible to all citizens and permanent residents. This means that a trip to the doctor, a hospital stay, or surgery is usually covered by the government. Patients don't get hit with massive medical bills after treatment, as sometimes happens in other countries. In the United States, the system works completely differently. Most healthcare is handled through private insurance companies. While a lot of people get their health insurance through their employers, even with coverage, medical care can still be incredibly expensive. For example, a single trip to the emergency room can cost hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on the situation and the treatment required. That's exactly why healthcare is always one of the most heavily debated topics when comparing these two countries. Another noticeable difference between Canada and the United States is the attitude toward firearms. In the US, the right to own a gun is protected by the Second Amendment. For many Americans, it's a fundamental part of their culture and their idea of personal freedom. While laws can vary wildly from state to state, buying a firearm in the United States is generally much easier than in most other countries. Gun stores, shooting ranges, and gun clubs are just a regular part of everyday life for a lot of people. In Canada, however, the rules are much stricter. Firearm ownership is allowed, but getting a license involves mandatory training, extensive background checks, and several other strict requirements. Plus, for most Canadians, firearms are seen mostly as tools for hunting or sport, rather than something you keep for personal protection. Because of this, the whole culture and atmosphere surrounding guns is completely different, making it one of the biggest points of contrast between the two nations. Higher education is another area where the contrast between Canada and the United States is incredibly clear. In the US, a university education can be extremely expensive. Tuition at prestigious schools can easily reach tens of thousands of dollars a year. Because of this, many students have to take out massive student loans, which they can spend years or even decades paying off after graduation. In Canada, higher education isn't free either, but it's generally much more affordable. The government heavily subsidizes universities, which helps keep tuition costs significantly lower for its citizens. And a lower price tag doesn't mean lower quality. Canadian universities consistently rank high globally and are widely considered to be some of the best educational institutions in the world. Interestingly, when it comes to sheer size, Canada is the second largest country on Earth, right behind Russia. Its landscape is packed with vast forests, towering mountains, countless lakes, and massive northern territories. But despite this enormous footprint, Canada has a surprisingly small population of just around 40 million people. The United States, on the other hand, is home to well over 300 million. Because of this, the population density in the US is significantly higher, and its cities tend to be much larger and more bustling. In Canada, meanwhile, vast stretches of land remain completely untouched by human development, with huge parts of the country still looking exactly as they did hundreds of years ago. When people think of Canada, they often picture freezing cold winters, and honestly, there's a lot of truth to that stereotype. In the northern regions, winter temperatures can completely plummet, and snow often covers the ground for months on end. But Canadian cities are built to handle these long winters, and locals are perfectly used to living with heavy snow and freezing temps. The United States, on the other hand, has an incredibly diverse climate. The country spans almost every climate zone on the planet, from the freezing northern states down to scorching deserts and even tropical regions. Because of this, what you consider normal weather in the US completely depends on which state you happen to be in. One of the biggest stereotypes about Canadians is their legendary politeness. In fact, many travelers notice that Canadians will apologize and say sorry even in situations where it's completely unnecessary. Sure, it's just a cultural quirk, but it has become a huge part of the country's global identity. Americans, on the flip side, are often perceived as more outspoken, energetic, and outwardly confident. American culture places a massive emphasis on personal achievement, taking initiative, and chasing success. Now, this doesn't mean one way of life is better than the other, but it definitely creates a noticeably different social vibe depending on which side of the border you're on. But despite all these differences, Canada and the US remain two of the closest neighbors in the world. They are deeply connected through trade, culture, history, and the millions of people who cross the border every single year to work, study, or travel. Still, it's exactly these differences that make comparing them so fascinating. They show how two nations with such similar roots can take completely different paths, building their own unique traditions and ways of life. And honestly, that's probably why the contrast between Canada and the United States continues to capture the curiosity of people all over the world.